back to Hometown TCG, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John.
And I think I'm out of the swing zone now. And I'm Josh, and we are back in class, guys. We are here with Classic Constructed 202, and this is all about deck trimming.
Alright, so we introed this last time a little bit. We talked about the rules behind it, so we're going to quickly review that and then go into the strategy behind it. So when you are building a deck, you have your hero, and then you have your 80 cards, which include your equipment and any cards you can play in your deck. So when you're doing this though, you can actually trim your deck down to 60 cards before the matchup starts. So it's very important to know how and when to do this.
Absolutely. So the only rule is that you must have a minimum deck size of 60 cards. Now, what this means is if you have 5 equipment pieces, that allow or 4 equipment pieces and a weapon, that allows you for 15 cards that can be matchup specific, that can be in your deck and come out when they don't feel as good. But the most important part about this is when this process happens, because the information you gather from the board, from your opponent, is what's going to drive this deck trimming.
That's right. So the first thing that we do is we each reveal our hero.
So we turn over our hero, and we get to know who the other person is playing in this moment. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to roll those dice, and you're going to decide if you're going first or second.
After that point, you have some information. You know their hero, you know if you're going first or second. That can make big decisions for you. Then you're going to choose your weapons and equipment.
Yes, so you're going to reveal all of your weapon and all of your equipment to your opponent. Now, you have all of the information for the game state. You know if you're going first or second. You know who you're playing against. You know what equipment you're using, and you know what equipment and weapon your opponent is using. At this moment, you are now able to trim cards out of your 80 card deck and make it as efficient or as matchup specific as you can.
Right, so with all that information, we're going to look at a couple different strategies to use to help you best decide. The first one is probably the most common. That would be what we call the silver bullet approach.
Yes, and we're not huge fans of this approach because it seems very narrow focused. It may work at your LGS, but at bigger events where you're going to see a wider variety of decks and heroes, this might not be your go-to.
Mm-hmm. So the point of this strategy is that your opponent is doing something, you know what they're doing, so you have this card that is specifically designed to beat that.
Couple examples, if you're playing setup control dash, Arg Smash is a great example of that.
So that's like one of the best examples, I think.
That is one of the best
you
examples.
Have that.
Another good example that we came up with today.
Yeah, you've got Snag. So that's a very specific matchup, but it can do work.
Sorry, Sir Bolton. Snag really does you in on a Via the Vanguard turn. A couple more unmovable Sleep Dart, and then Herald banishes Herald of Judgment.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So yeah, you have the ones you say to yourself before you build your deck. Against this character, what am I going to do? Against this character, what am I going to do? Against this character, and you put in those certain cards for those matchups. Now, the second strategy is one that we really have fallen in love with, and that is the multiple deck strategy. This is where you have your core cards that you like to play with, but then depending on the matchup, you try to become more aggro, you try to become more control, or you stay as a mid-range kind of style.
Yes, so this allows you to play or have your deck feel like it plays like 2 different decks or maybe even 3 different decks, given your opponent the game state and a given situation, right? So a couple good examples of this would be your Heralds or Auras in Prism, right? Based on your opponent, your Heralds or Auras are going to be more important, and even your weapon. So if you're coming against a Levia or a Rhinar, you definitely don't want as many of those Heralds in there. You're going to want a couple more Auras.
Yeah, and then speaking about Rhinar himself, is you can go for more of a claws style setup type thing, or you can go for more of a defensive where you're playing more of your defense reactions and swinging a club style.
Yeah, and this approach is very rock, paper, scissors, guys, right? It's very aggro beats control, beats mid-range,
Aggro beats like your setups beat your control.
And then your control beats your setups.
Your aggro.
Your aggro, yes. Oh my goodness. But it's rock, guys. The point is, it's rock paper scissors. You have a triad. Edit that out in post. It'll be fine. You have this triad where the 3 different kind of archetypes really balance against each other, and you're able to shift your deck into the archetype that is most in your favor in that moment. Mm-hmm. And then The third approach that we've actually been really enjoying more and more recently. We haven't shifted our deck building strategy entirely around it yet, but it's the concept, and it comes down to that very last step where you side deck or you trim your deck. It's the last thing you do before you shuffle up and play. It's the go first versus go second package.
Mm-hmm. So if you're going first, your deck needs to have something it can do to take advantage of that. You want to be able to set up in some way. But if you're going second, you're put into more of the aggro play style, so you want to be able to keep up that pressure. And depending on if you go first or second, certain cards could be useful to help you maximize that.
You've got a couple really good go first cards, and I know in the Katsu build that you've been running, I know there's one specifically, but what are some of your go-to go first cards?
Things would be potions.
Okay.
That's something that comes to mind right away, is that if you have these potions that you like to use in your deck anyway, going first, you want to have a good chance of drawing them. So adding in some potions, adding in things that work well in the arsenal, such as Plunder Run is another great example.
Another point on your potions, if you're going first, you find yourself on that second turn having to block a lot because your opponent is now using that hyper aggro strategy. Having that potion to block out and lay down a potion, you get some value.
Exactly. You just don't want to have too many that you can't block.
Oh, yeah.
So there's always that balance. Some other things could be Flock of the Featherwalkers to get out the Quicken token.
Yes.
Thank you. Nourishing Emptiness.
That's not what I thought you were saying.
I was gonna say Nourishing Emptiness is a great card if you're going first. So if you have 6 damage attack, if you want just a blank 6 damage attack in your deck, it's an amazing go first card.
It is. It's an incredible go first card. I thought you were actually going to mention Soul Food. Soul Food is another very interesting go first card. Doesn't see much play right now, but an interesting go first card. And then there is also, if you flip the script here and you got the inverse of this as your go second package, when you feel like you have to be the aggressor, you feel like you got to get on that front foot, get on the gas, and stay on the gas, you're going to want to keep a certain package of cards. And most importantly, you're going to want to streamline that down to 60, because if you have to be on the gas and you draw a bad hand, you're going to lose it.
Mm-hmm. You want to make sure that you keep in that aggressive role. As soon as you have a dead turn, your opponent switches momentum and they can take advantage of that. So in order to not, you may want to play more cards. Like we've been seeing Outmuscle in Bravo.
Yes.
It's a great card when you go second.
Less defense reactions in that same Bravo build, right?
Right, yeah. So you can have a more aggro type thing without all those defense.
Exactly. So you're going to want to keep a lot of that gas in that scenario, and maybe even trim out some of the stuff you would keep if you're going first. Your potions, like we said, your defense reactions, auras, stuff like that. That really isn't going to offer you a lot of gas. Maybe it's a little more setupy.
Right, and maybe it's just you want to have your potions anyway, but you're not running 3 copies of them because you don't want to get caught in a situation where you have 2 in your hand at a time.
Absolutely. So yeah, the 3 versus 1 copy, that's another argument you can make. But guys, this is all information you're going to need, and it's something that if you've only played Blitz up to this point, it's going to be very weird. We're going to recommend you get your deck together and you get some time in with that deck. Play as many matchups as you can get your hands on, and guys, take notes, whether they're physical notes, which you cannot do in tournament play, but playing with your friends, playing around the house, play testing, take your notes, discuss the interactions, discuss the deck, and then go from there before you take any out. If you're patrons of ours, if you're in our Discord, you've seen that this is John and I's system. We discuss every matchup. We make sure to play something, even if it feels bad, to prove that it's bad before removing it.
Mm-hmm. So playtesting is just a huge part of this classic constructed environment because there's so much more to it that you need to learn about your deck. Another thing to note is that if you're looking at a deck list online, you may not know which cards they're actually playing most of the time. They have their 80 cards, but which cards are their silver bullets? Which cards are their aggro package? What is it? So we encourage you, if you really have no idea, just to play the full version, get a feel for what all the cards do, and then start to side some out depending on your matchup to trim down.
Yeah, so make those decisions after you understand what the deck wants to do. And guys, you have to fail here. You have to play the deck and get it wrong so you have an understanding of why. I think that's important, and I think that's part of what makes Classic Constructed so much fun, and I think we are pumped to get these decks that we're building, to get into these events, get to the calling, get to the road to nationals and take our shot.
That's right.
Dude, I'm pumped.
I think that pretty much wraps up. You got anything else?
I don't have anything else, guys. Again, I just want to remind you, it is a game, guys. Get out there, have some fun with this. Play this deck, enjoy what you're doing, have fun, laugh with your friends, and you'll beat them down a couple times. It feels good. But until next time, my name is Josh.
And I'm John.
And we will see you in Classic Constructed 303.